Be confident, be bold, be authentic, but don't forget to take action. This is Ordinary to Badass, where our stories empower women to step into the spotlight of their own lives and pursue what they're truly passionate about. It's time to step into the arena and become more than just extraordinary. It's time to become a badass with your host, Marie Sonneman.
Welcome to Ordinary to Badass, episode number 215. In this episode, you're going to hear from Terry Short. Terry is a human potential developer. She has been a coach in one capacity or another for the past 30 years. So you're going to hear about about the narrative in your head, how to stop feeling like an imposter, and the importance of recognizing your values and strengths. I don't know about you, but as I've gotten older, I've really realized how important it is to pay attention to the things that we're saying to ourselves in our heads, because that stuff reflects out. It also can be the difference of feeling miserable throughout the day or feeling great or feeling good about yourself and having confidence. And you know, I'm all about confidence. So stay tuned because you're not going to want to miss this episode. Welcome to Ordinary to Badass. Whether you're ordinary or badass, I am so glad you're here. Today's guest is Terry Short. Terry, thank you so much for being here. Excited to have you on the show.
Thank you, Marie. I'm super excited to be here.
So before we go any further, I've got to ask you, do you consider yourself ordinary or badass?
Badass. I'm going to go with badass. And that's not a new thing. I've kind of felt that way for a long time.
So have you felt that way your whole life, or was there anything specific that triggered you to feel like a badass?
Yeah, pretty much my whole life. So my brother's only 18 months older than me. And so I kind of grew up as a tomboy and really sort of side by side with him. And I just adventure wise and doing things and believing that I could do things. I also had a father that really encouraged me and said, yes, you can do whatever you put your mind to. And so I had that sense of, in respect to others, where I'd be like advancing forward, being what I thought, what I would call now badass, or even sometimes others said, use those words, right? I had that sense and that confidence from a really early age.
Man, I think that's so powerful, especially for any parents listening to this. It's like the stuff that you say really can have a huge effect on your kids and propel them forward. So I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Along those lines, there was a book that I read when my kids were little. I have a son and a daughter. And when they were little, I read a book called Reviving Ophelia. And it's had a 25-year new edition or what have you. Highly recommend it for any parents with girls, because it helps you think about the words that you choose and how you say things that have a positive impact on them. So I've actually heard my daughter, and my son say, "Mom, you're so badass."
Yes, I love it. So speaking of the words you choose, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I wrote a book called The Words We Choose, Your Guide to How and Why Words Matter. And that was a long time coming. So I'll back up a little bit. I had early on, so this goes back to how I might get the confidence that I have, is I worked for my dad's company. And I was, like the only woman. There were a couple women out in the shop, but I was ordering steel and nuts and bolts and widgets and such. And I'm talking 18, 19 years old, because he had that confidence in me. So anyway, so then I go into hospitality, and I spend most of my 20s and 30s or early 30s in hospitality and hospitality management with Four Seasons Hotels. I break out and I do my own business for 15 years, and then I transition into healthcare. So really complicated, long story, how one goes from hospitality to healthcare. But suffice it to say, I took the jungle gym approach to my career, and did 10 years sort of in the corporate healthcare world, and then returned to my own business, which I now have. So I coach leaders in Fortune 500 companies. I'm a speaker and now an author, I get to say.
So how did you get into coaching and public speaking?
Yeah, I was doing a lot of public speaking for decades with my own business years ago, and then in healthcare. And I was speaking to healthcare leaders around the country I worked for the largest healthcare provider in the United States. And so I got to the level where I was coaching the leaders, and that brought about a lot of public speaking. And then when I got back to my own business and was doing the individual coaching and got my professional coach certification, I love my coaching, and I do it on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. During the course of the coaching, every week, individuals have these aha moments, and some of them have been with me a couple of years. And, over the course of time, they have this transformation. And now my interest is helping that transformation happen with more people, not just the individuals I coach, but, whether it's through a podcast. I'm doing some retreats this year. I'm hosting a few retreats. And so now I want that impact to be exponential. And so that's my passion. That's what I get fired up about every day.
Which, I mean, from what you're saying, it just kind of hit me. And obviously you knew this long ago, but like the words we choose, that's important for public speaking, as well as our mindset and the chatter that goes on in our head. So I love that.
It is. So I'll tell you what I call that. This is the unfortunate thing. I did not have this phrase in my head when I wrote the book. In the book, I talk about your voice as a choice and your internal narrative. And no sooner was the book published that it occurred to me that I should call it your personal podcast, because that's what it is. Everybody's got their headsets on, they're walking around listening to podcasts or their earbuds in. The reality is that personal podcast is playing 24/7, right? And sometimes it's that pinball episode where you're going from this to that, to this to that. And sometimes it's that rabbit hole episode where you go like, right, down into some rabbit hole. But either way, whichever episode is playing or time of day that it's playing, 3 a.m, 4 p.m, you're in control of it. So when it's your personal podcast, you're the host, the producer, the director, the narrator. You get to decide who comes on, what voices are playing. And that's incredibly important. So that's the first choice. And then the next choice is, once you decide who's playing and what's playing in your head, you choose the right words associated with that. The narrative that will make you more successful, and the narrative that is inspiring and uplifting, as opposed to minimizing or limiting in any way.
So in the beginning, it seems like you don't have a choice of your words, or somebody listening could be like, what are you talking about? I don't have a choice when this bad thought comes into my head. Can you speak to that a little bit, and then what you can do after you hear that negative thought?
Yeah, sure. Here's a common one that I think we've all at least read about. If it didn't happen exactly to us, we've at least heard stories like this. So the kids believe they can do everything. They're invincible, right? And when they're little, that child that's told, you'll never be a good writer, or you can't sing well, or you're not going to be an artist, or what, we all know stories of children being told that. And then that is now their personal podcast. So it's gone over on, I'm not very good at this. I'm not a very good writer. And so they have that ingrained. So the trick is to decide what you believe and whether or not you really believe that, and even if believing that serves you any longer. So I'm not a good writer. Does that serve me any longer? No, it doesn't. Can I control that? Yes, I can. And so that's a phrase that I started on back when I told you about my father's company. And I'd get those types of roadblocks where people would say to me, well, she's a woman. Can she really do that? Or does she know anything about that? I would say over and over, of course I can. Of course I can. And I would say that out loud, but that is also became part of my internal narrative. So step one is to hold up the mirror and look closely at your reflection and say, what am I allowing to play in that podcast over and over that no longer serves me? And then abandon it, eliminate it. So that's generally speaking. Then we can get into specific words, take this word out, put that word in, and so on and so forth. But does that answer your question?
Yes. But then of course I can't, I have another one. So how do you know when something's no longer serving you?
I'm a firm believer in figure out what your own personal values are. So two things I think an individual should be aware of, and these are words, your values and your strengths. So between your values and your strengths, whatever you're telling yourself should be tied to one of those two groups, right? And you've got multiple words that are in each of those groups, like honesty, collaboration, relationship building might be a strength, confidence might be a value. So you can toggle back and forth and say, wait a minute, so I just heard this play that I'm not a great writer. Does that serve my value of strength or confidence? Does it serve my value of, I might have a strength of having a growth mindset and continually learning. So does playing that and allowing that to be in my mind serve those values and those strengths? No, not at all. So I release them. I release this thought process, or this, maybe it's even conditioning that was served up by somebody else. Again, teacher, parent, what have you, right? And so that releasing that conditioning, and the trick is there's releasing it, but you're better served also to replace it. Replace it with what you do believe, what you intend to believe.
Okay, so you have a thought, you have something negative that you're saying, like say, I'm no good at music, or I'm not good at dancing. Then what would be an example of how you could replace it? And just every time do you think that thought, do you replace it? How does that work?
Okay. I'm no good at dancing. And so what purpose does that serve? Do I desire to be good at dancing? And if I say yes, then I say, then what will I do about that? I'm in control of that. That's what I mean by producer, director, narrator of the podcast. I'm in control of that voice. And so no longer serves me. If I desire to be a good dancer, I'm going to go fix that. I'm going to say, this, I don't believe that. And I'm going to go and give it a try and test myself and be badass at trying to be a dancer. So I'm going to go figure it out, and I'm not going to allow that minimizing thought to hold me up in any way. And so if I want to dance, I'm going to dance. So that's the first thing. Then is making an action tied to it, but then replacing it with, I will dance as well as I want to dance. So I might not say, I'm headed to Broadway or, to the big stage, but I'm going to decide on my own intention about the dancing. And then I'll repeat over and over in my mind, whenever I hear this, you're no good at dancing, I'll say, indeed, I'm as good as I want to be at dancing. And I'm going to take control of that. Right?
Yeah, yeah. And then what does that do for you?
That uplifts me at all times, right? It uplifts me. And it gets me also, Marie, into some of these words that we throw around all day, every day that are so limiting, like should. That's another thing that plays in your head. I should or I shouldn't do X. And why is that? It's conditioning, the doing of X or not doing it. We're being conditioned to say that. In the book, I talk about how I grew up on the East Coast, and there were a lot of shoulds on the East Coast. And there was like weird dress code shoulds, like I shouldn't wear white after Labor Day, or whatever. And then, I'm in my 50s, and that narrative still plays sometimes. And so I say, wait. So I like to say, stifle the shoulds, and sometimes straight up abandon them. Like believing that I shouldn't wear white after Labor Day. Like, does that serve me any longer? And the reality is I live in California, and no, it doesn't. You can wear white whenever you want. Right? So I'm gonna look in the mirror and hold it up and say, what am I hearing? What am I saying? What am I allowing to be said? Do I really truly believe that? And how do I want to change that up? So some of the more limiting words are what you should do, what you must do. Can't is a limiting word when we tell ourselves that we can't do X, Y, or Z. And so sorting that out, and you can't do it all at one time, but sorting out the important things that you're continually limiting yourself by choosing those words, and then change them up to ones that are more positive.
Yes, and I am going to add to that list and say sorry. Because we, especially women, like we say I'm sorry so much. And even when it's not a place where we need to be sorry.
Right. You know what I call that? I call that habitual words. So that's conditioning too. But so we've been conditioned and we've chosen, so it's a choice, we've chosen to use these habitual words. And so sorry, habitually, it serves no purpose. So when I hear that playing over and over again, I think, wait a minute, where's the value there? And does that tie to my values and what I believe to be my strengths? No, serves no purpose for me to offer up some sort of sorry when I was at no fault in the first place. So that's a great example. Another great thing that you just did, you said yes, and so that's another one that I find myself coaching a lot, is that it's in replace of but. So but can be, I think but is like the scissors, but whatever came before, when you say but, you're just cutting it, you're severing it, right? I'd like to show you the work that the team's been working on in the last 6 months, but I also know that you want to know about this. So I just negated the work that the team's been working on for the last 6 months, right? Or you could say to your partner, I'm interested in going out to dinner tonight, but, and that severs that I'm interested in going out to dinner tonight, right? So it's yes and is what you switch it up to. And it probably 90% of the time you can insert and where you would have had but.
So how do we go about being more intentional about the words that we use and really having them make a change or make an impact in our life?
You have to identify them first. So I would say I'd sit down and I'd listen carefully to the personal podcast and I'd list what I believe the limiting words are. And then I would assess which ones I use more regularly and say, okay, if I have 5 on my list, I'm going to work on these 2. And every time I hear them, I like to say, practice the pause. Just practice the pause. You can already tell I speak very quickly. So for me to practice the pause, to align my words before I speak, that's a nanosecond. You know, when I start to hear myself say another one, I think. A lot of times as women, sometimes as leaders, will say, well, I think we'll probably be able to. Well, the think and the probably have minimized what it is you believe you're capable of doing, right? So I'll hear myself say that sometimes. So I'll say, I think, and that practice the pause happens right there mid-sentence. And I'll say, no, I'm sorry. I know that we're capable of executing this goal, blah, 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 right?
Yeah, which is funny because I've caught myself saying that a bit lately, and then I'll be like, I think, kind of like you said, I know, or no, I don't think, I know. but it's funny because I didn't really put it into the same like perspective that you did, but it's also a confidence thing. Like just stating what you know shows confidence in yourself, in your abilities. So I think that's very important.
Yeah, another one that I believe women use a lot is just. Makes me crazy when someone says, here, the classic example is, I'm just the executive assistant. You know, I'll be on the phone and I'll ask for something. Somebody says that, and I think to myself, if they had a bubble above their head, it would say, the actual bubble would say, I'm the person that holds everything together for these 2 executives. They wouldn't show up to any meetings on time without me, so on and so forth. And yet what comes out of their mouth is, I'm just the executive assistant. So that's the key. The key is, this is why I wrote the book, is I was observing that it's different for different people, but there's what's in your heart and there's what's in your mind. And the trick is, why I wrote the book, is to help people see that if you practice the pause, you can get what comes out of your mouth to be more aligned. So some people, and we might generalize and say women, speak more from their heart. So they just throw out there, or they minimize, and they don't connect what they really know to be true in their minds. So the trick is what's in your mind, what do you know to be true, what's in your heart, and how to pull that together in a meaningful way that serves what your intention is.
Yeah. And sorry, I got feedback on my end again. It sounds like imposter syndrome is beneath a lot of it, which if you're not aware of what imposter syndrome is to the OTB audience, it's like when you feel like you're not enough or you're not worthy of whatever you're going for. Like say the CEO or something, and you're like, oh, I'm not good enough to be a CEO. I'm not good enough to be a boss, to be a manager, to be a supervisor, to be this or that. What do you do when you have feelings of not enoughness?
A great question too. So that's all about reframing to me. So the thing is, just like you're in control of the personal podcast, you're in control of the imposter syndrome too. Like no one imposes that upon someone. No one says, you're an imposter. At least I haven't ever heard that. It's typically something that someone internalizes, right? Or, maybe a family member or someone has poked at what they do, or what they've said. So that's led them to feel like an imposter. Either way, they're in control of that belief. So it's a reframing to me. So I feel like a lot of times when I say, listen to what you're saying or hearing in your internal narrative and hold that up and then replace it. What the process is a little bit more complicated in that you reframe it. So you reframe what it is that you're believing. And the way to reframe is to ask some questions. So here's how I typically reframe is I think, well, wait a minute, what's the positive of this, of believing this? Let's say the imposter, I'm not capable or I'm not enough. What's the positive of believing that? I go, there isn't one really, what's the value in that? There isn't one. What do I learn? So I think positive, learn, respond. Those are my three things. So what's the positive? Nothing. It's not tied to my values. What am I learning? I'm learning that I need to take a deeper look at what I am capable of and what my strengths are, and then use my voice tied to those strengths to show up differently. So then I'll believe it as much as others believe about my capabilities, right? So then I tease back what that learning is and I own it. So I'm going to own what I'm learning. And then that reflection on what's positive, if there is anything positive, and what the learning is, then informs how I respond. Now, my response is going to be much more confident and much more tied to my values and my strengths. And I'm going to use words related to that. I have another reframing that's typically very popular, at least with those I coach. And that's this is a good way to illustrate this. That have to. Like we spend a lot of time talking about what we have to do. So typically everybody, anybody I know says they have to do the laundry on the weekend, right? Is that your usual routine, laundry on the weekend?
Yep.
Sometime, right? So here's the deal. I say you get to do the laundry on the weekend. And so that's a reframing. So when I reframe it to I get to do the laundry on the weekend, why is that? So what are the positives of doing the laundry? I have clean clothes. As a matter of fact, I have hot running water and a washing machine and detergent. Those are all positives. And so what have I learned? I've learned that it's a privilege to be able to do the laundry. And so that learning informs how I'm going to respond or react to the doing of the laundry. And it'll change my word use. And I'll say, ends up, I get to do the laundry on the weekend because all of these other things are aligned for me. And so that's what I mean. That's an example of how I would reframe that.
Yeah. And I think sometimes just a simple reframe can completely change your perspective on something. And it kind of like what you were talking about, you're getting to do the laundry and thinking of like the hot water and the laundry detergent and how good it's going to smell and all the things. You can focus on that, or you can focus on the negative side. But a lot of times, like thinking of gratitude helps you too, or puts you in a different state of mind for sure.
Absolutely. So I can't say enough about the reframing. That's really how you change the conditioning that's occurred in your life for whatever reason. And it's an ownership issue. So I'm going to own the reframing so that I'm not tied to how it got there in the first place. How it got there in the first place could be somebody was not choosing their words wisely when I was in elementary school or when I was younger or what have you. And, I would guess that given the opportunity to know the impact, then those individuals might change their words. The key here is now we're in that place. So now we're in that place to, with our children, with our colleagues, with our family members, with our peers, to be the one that offers words that are inspiring and uplifting and not minimizing or limiting.
Yeah. And I know sometimes we get in this place where we're trying to improve and trying to be better. And like after listening to you, maybe listening to our words a little bit more, pausing before saying things. But then as a result, we end up going down this shame spiral and like, oh, I messed up. I didn't do it this time, and like we get on that track. What do you have to say to that?
I'm going to reframe it. I'm putting it right back through that filter. I'm saying, well, wait a minute. Okay. I did not accomplish that, which I really set out to do. However, what were the positives? So I might say the not doing of this was because I did this. It's this other thing that bumped it out, and that's positive. And there was value there. And so I'm gonna even this thing that I didn't accomplish that makes me feel horrible, I guarantee you can tease out something positive. And you can tease out something you learned from that experience. I didn't do it because I failed to put it in my calendar. I failed to proactively plan. I didn't know all the pieces that were going to be a part of it. I'm making all this up, but that would be all what I learned, right? So I tease out that learning and I say, okay, so how does that inform how I'll react or respond? Now it's going to inform that it's not going to happen again because I've taken that moment to sort of peel back the layers of what didn't happen and how I would like that to be different. So I'm not going to wallow in it. So you mentioned the spiral. I can choose to go down there, or I can stay up above and say, there's no value in the wallowing. There's value in teasing out what the positives are, what the learning is, and now how I respond.
And then I imagine like that takes you to looking at it more from a learning mindset as opposed to like critiquing or criticizing yourself.
That's right. Yeah. And that's all good. That's all good. It's my position. And again, I think this is being badass early on is that you see all obstacles as opportunities, right? How can you peel back the layers, this horrible thing that happened? How can you take this obstacle, this challenge, and peel back the layers of it and get to the heart of it and tease out what the opportunity might be? So that's another key thing, the use of powerful questions. So a lot of times this is word choice. Our go-to questioning is oftentimes why. Why didn't that work? Why didn't I do better at that? Why did I miss this opportunity? Why? We're way better served to ask what and how questions. How could I have done that better? What caused me to go left instead of right and get sidetracked or what have you? How is the doing of this in the first place tied to my values? What strength will I leverage the next time I have this obstacle or this challenge? And so the what and how questions get you deeper to understanding the challenge and the hidden. That I think like every challenge is it's like a geode, right? So here's your challenge, is like it looks like a boulder and it's a geode, but as you get to the heart of it, beautiful. And it's a learning opportunity.
So how often are you examining your thoughts and the words you choose?
I love that question. So here's the deal. This is what I coach too. I believe that there should be a daily assessment. And so personally, I meditate every morning. So that's a time for me to kind of quiet my mind. And at the end of the meditation, then I set some intentions for the day. So that's what I'm controlling that narrative. I'm saying, okay, this is the podcast going to play today. Here's who's coming on. Here's what it's going to look like. Well, then, as the day goes on, that all unravels and like things happen, a weird phone call, meeting, something goes awry. So I believe your opportunities are this. You're practicing the pause before you go into a meeting. You're practicing it when you leave a meeting or a call. When I finish this podcast with you, I will have just a moment. Just take a moment to think about what I did particularly well, what I might do better in the next time. So I'm going to have that pause there, and then maybe perhaps at the end of the day. And that's when you hear people talk about gratitude journals. That's where I might say, what am I most grateful for today? What did I do well? the doing of more fabulous, badass things is completely tied to the recognition of what you're already doing well, giving yourself credit for and recognizing what you're already succeeding at. Because when you do that, there'll be more of it.
Ooh, yeah, I would love for you to dive into that more, because I think sometimes we forget or undervalue the importance of being your own cheerleader and really embracing what you did well. So if you could talk about that a little bit more, I would love it.
Yeah, I'll start with the executives that I coach. Like somehow, this is just how the world has become. We think somebody else is responsible for the cheerleading. Somebody else is responsible for the recognition. I mean, I have people say to me, well, yeah, I put my head down, I do my job, I do it really well. Somebody should recognize that. I'm like, it doesn't work like that. Like you're like, it's going to take forever if that's your position, right? So then you get to, I don't want to be bragging. I don't want to be bragging. I don't want to, to be all about me. I hear you. But when you reframe that to what is it that you need out of the situation? You desire to be recognized for your contribution, for the value that you bring, for your strengths, what have you. So offer that up. So offer that up even in your word choices. So if I reported to you or even you're my partner and I want you to know something that I'm going to own what I'm good at or what I've succeeded at just today or the call I was just on or what have you. So I'm going to plant those seeds in conversation with you, right? I'm going to use the words that are tied to what's important to me back to you. And so that's not bragging. That's really sort of managing yourself up and speaking highly, which has a snowball effect. It's not just about painting the picture to you about what I believe I'm doing well. It starts to really inform that narrative inside my head, right? So then I'm believing it more too. So that's why you can't have enough of that. You can't have enough of not bragging, but asserting what's important to you, what you're doing well, what you value, what your strengths are, any of those positive things at any given time. And I guarantee it's a snowball effect and it builds upon itself.
So with the example of bragging, like you don't want to be bragging, so you go into a meeting, are you saying to use the word like assertion or assertive? Words are hard, no. But to use like those type of words more and that'll come back to you, or what would be a suggestion of what to say?
Yeah, so I would think about, so what do I want these people to know in the meeting? So that's a big push of mine, is to get people to be more clear about their desired outcomes in the meeting. So I'm going to go into a meeting and I want them to clearly know what our team just accomplished and what how well we did at X or how well we're tracking or whatever. So I might tie it to something that's along the lines of a value like collaboration or teamwork, and say, in the spirit of collaboration, I want to be sure that you all are aware that our team worked hard for the last 6 months over this, and we were able to overcome obstacles because of the way that we built relationships with the outside customers. I'm gonna weave in the strengths and the things that we did to paint that positive picture. So I'm gonna exude the certainty and the assurance. I'm not so much gonna say it, but I'm gonna exude it, and I'm gonna tie it together by way of using words that are values and strengths, right? Okay. And so that's how I'm going to represent myself and perhaps my team.
And then I would imagine just by doing that alone, you're going to be more confident because you're talking on things that they're your values, they're your strengths. So yeah, I love that.
And then there's no imposter, because there's no imposter back there. There's just me showing up all, positive and standing firmly in what I believe and what I know that I'm capable of doing and what my contribution is. That's why that a little bit more prep before one goes into a meeting, before one, has a difficult conversation, kind of practice the pause and have that moment of clarity around what is your desired outcome, and therefore what words are you going to weave into that conversation as you speak to whomever it is.
So we've talked several times or mentioned values and strengths. Do you have any sort of practice that you do to write down your values and strengths? And if so, what is that?
There are many ways to go about that. So at first, so years ago, I would think, oh, I don't want to look at a values list and then go like, oh yeah, that looks good. You know what I mean? Anyway, so years ago, I'd be like, oh, I'm not going to look at any list. I'm going to make up my own. Well, now I think the list is really helpful. So Brene Brown has a list that, like, you can download it. She has a PDF, and I think it's a 1-page list, and you can go through and say, okay, circle the ones that really resonate with you, and then start to narrow them down by way of how you show up. It's probably more complicated than I can explain on this call, but I have a few questions like, what would my friends say about me? How do I show up? You start to ask yourself some questions about who you are, and then you're able to say, like, these words come up, and these are the words on the list, and then you pick the ones that you identify with the most. Regarding strengths, there are many ways to go around about that. You can do a strength finders, I think now they call it Clifton. It's through Gallup. That's one of my go-to ways to identify it's an online assessment, what my strengths are. And there are dozens and dozens of assessments, I guess you would call them, to figure out what your strengths are. And that's important to know. And sometimes it's internal. A lot of companies have some sort of strength building exercise that you do in order to identify your strengths. But I'm a firm believer, you should know them and you should own them. You can't change the words that you choose if you're not owning them. You just can't.
Yes. And that's part of the tagline of our show, own it and get after it. Like, it's really all about owning who you are and taking that into your life. So yeah. Okay, I know we're winding down here. Let's end with a tip to encourage women who are in the arena fighting for the life that they want.
One word. So let me have a clear post-it here. As a post-it note, write one word. I've given some examples, but we didn't exhaust it all. So one word that's limiting you. That's, you hear it on your personal podcast. You see it in your emails. That word just and but and should and must, like you're going to see it. You'll see it as you're texting and you hear it. Write that one word down and then pull it off the post-it note and tear it up into tiny little bits. And on the next post-it note, write the replacement word. It's way easier to have a replacement word and stick it on your computer and have that visual so that you're not just removing this one, but you're ready with what you're going to replace it with. So that's my tip. It's super easy to do. You can't change everything at once. So Fast Company wrote an article last year. They interviewed me for the words to remove from your lexicon. So it's like 10 long, but you can't do them all. You can't unsee the list, but you can go one word at a time. That's what I recommend.
So good. And how can we connect with you?
Terre, which is spelled Terre at shortgroup.net. And I would love to connect. And I'm also on LinkedIn, Terre Short, SHORT.
Thank you so much, Terre. You've been a total badass and I've enjoyed hearing your story.
Oh, I very much enjoyed talking with you. Thank you.
And with that, we'll end our show. To all the badass women out there staying in the arena, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, own it and get after it.
Now that you've listened to this episode of Ordinary to Badass, we want to hear from you. Go to our website, ordinarytobadass.com/podcast, and submit your own experience on how you took your life from ordinary to badass and get the chance to be on a future Spotlight episode of the show. That's ordinarytobadass.com/podcast. While you're waiting for the next episode of the show, wipe off the sweat, dust off the dirt, and get back in the arena.